Meine Damen und Herren, also besten Dank, dass Sie gekommen sind. Das ist die erste und die letzte Möglichkeit für mich, diese Geschichte dem deutschen Publikum zu erzählen. Ja, ich heiße Jakub Kumoch, ich bin Botschafter von Polen in der Schweiz. Ja, aber wir haben ein sprachliches Problem, entschuldigen Sie bitte, weil nicht alle Deutsch sprechen. Vielleicht wäre es besser, dass ich Englisch sprach, dann verstehen wir uns miteinander und benutzen dasselbe Vokabeln. Also, may I switch into English? So, yes, I think it will be more useful. Ladies and gentlemen, in 2016 I became ambassador of Poland to Switzerland. And before that I had never heard about the mere existence of my predecessor, Alexander Ładoś. Alexander Ładoś was the representative of Poland, head of the Polish legation, which means embassy today, between 1940 and 1945. He represented the Polish government in exile. For those who are less familiar with the history of Poland, let me remind that in 1939, Poland did not negotiate armistice with Germany, but the government left the country and pledged to continue the struggle, having its headquarters first in Angers in France, and then in London. So all the Polish embassies which functioned at that time were loyal to the London-based government of the Republic of Poland. I had never heard about the story of my wartime predecessor, apart of knowing that there was an embassy during the war in Switzerland. The story we found out about was actually a Jewish legend from Switzerland. Since the very first day, I was contacted by local Jewish members of Jewish community, and they told me that we should do something about Alexander Ładoś because he rescued many people during the Holocaust. I didn't believe this story at the beginning because I believed that the historians must have known about it. But as we all know, science is not given forever. I was convinced after a few months by an Orthodox Jewish man, professor of mathematics, I think, at the University of Zurich, who, being a guest at the during the Constitution Day party at the embassy, started crying and told me that this place was holy. Next day, I decided that, I must do something about it. And I Googled the name Alexander Ładoś and the term he always mentioned, Paraguayan passports. I found a document, which is here, a declassified Swiss note from 1943, minutes from the meeting between Alexander Ładoś and the foreign minister of Switzerland, Marcel Pilecki-Instituts. Marcel Pilecki-Instituts said something like that. The Polish minister came agitated. He started crying, saying that Poland is going to make a huge scandal unless we stop following them. And he said, it's not about Switzerland. Switzerland is not in danger. It's about Paraguay. It's about Poland. It's about rescuing lives. Well, I think for everybody who has to do anything with textual analysis, it's understandable that Ładoś knew there were Paraguayan passports. They were used for saving lives. And the Swiss were blackmailed at that moment not to follow and not to interrupt the operation. I believe that all Holocaust-related stories should be free of today's politics. It's very common, not only in Poland, but in many countries, that we use history for today's purposes. well, I'm a scientist, and I also did not want to jeopardize my scientific, let's say, methodology and thoroughness. That's why I asked journalists for help. Journalists from a liberal newspaper, Dziennik Gazeta Prawna, by the way, founded by Axel Springer several years ago in Poland. And I asked a colleague of mine from the Times, I was a journalist myself, Mark McKinnon from the Daily Globe and Mail, to investigate the story. These are the articles which appeared in 2017 in both newspapers in August 2017. Basically, they confirmed all what my Jewish interlocutors told me and found even more. At the beginning, we believed that the story is very simple. Polish diplomats in Bern found a corrupt Paraguayan honorary consul who agreed to sell passports of Paraguay to Polish Jews so that the Nazi German occupiers would treat them as foreigners and exclude them from Holocaust and from extermination. Well, at the beginning, I believe that this story seems to be too upbeat and probably of very little probability. And so did many historians who believe that, yes, it happened, but most of Polish Jews who were in possession of these passports died. After the articles, I received an email from this person, Heidi Fishman. Heidi Fishman, who said, you know, the pictures of passports that appeared in the Daily Globe and Mail make me believe that there was one person who was the forger, because my grandfather had such a passport, and it's done exactly by the same person. The problem was that Heidi Fishman had nothing to do with Poland. Her grandfather was a German, as it was the case of practically all her family. Well, we couldn't understand how it is possible that there was one person who fabricated passports for all of them. We knew that the Paraguayan consul did not do it himself. He just sold blanco passes to the Polish diplomats. And one of them must have done it. It led us to one of the biggest discoveries at the very beginning, because in Yad Vashem we found a note, internal note from the Polish embassy, and we compared first the numbers on the note, 1503, with numbers on the Paraguayan passports, and they were all identical. We identified that the person who created practically all Paraguayan passports, which is half of all Latin American passports which were issued in Bern, was Polish Vice Consul Konstanty Rokicki, a Ładoś man. After a few months, an Israeli person came to us showing a passport, Polish passport, legally obtained Polish passport of her mother. The passport was issued in Bern in 1941. And here you can compare the handwriting on the Polish passport and the handwriting on the so-called Paraguayan one. It led us to discover that there was a Holocaust rescuer who was practically unknown and who probably tried to save as many as 4,000 to 5,000 people. This is what we called the Ładoś group. 6 persons we identified as the ones who were actively involved in fabricating passports for what we believe is between 8,000 and 10,000 people all over Europe, and including at least several hundreds German Jews. Let me just introduce them very briefly. Alexander Ładoś, I already told you, this was the head of operation, the ambassador of Poland at that time. He had 2 important Jewish partners, leaders of Jewish organizations in Switzerland. as you see, you have a, well, you don't see it, but I will tell you about it. You have a secular Jew, Zionist, Abraham Silberschein, a socialist, who mostly dealt with rescuing secular Zionist and left-wing Jewish people, and Chaim Eis, ultra-Orthodox from Zurich, and also an immigrant from Poland, who dealt with rabbinical dynasties. We have Ładoś II, Stefan Ryniewicz, who would intervene with the Swiss police, and Konstanty Rokicki, he would fabricate passports himself. Finally, last but not least, very important person, Juliusz Kuhl. Juliusz Kuhl was a Polish Jewish diplomat hired by the embassy in 1939 or 1940, whose main task was dealing with Polish refugees in Switzerland. And as you can imagine, during the war, the vast majority of Polish refugees in Switzerland were Jews, between 80 and 90%. So they hired a Jew to understand better the conditions in which Jewish refugees live. Juliusz Kuhl probably handed bribes to the honorary consul of Paraguay. Before I pass the floor to my colleagues who are much better in details and in speaking about documents, let me just one brief remark, and which should be always remembered. People who, honorary consuls, I mean, these people did not make it for profit. They did it for humanitarian, patriotic, and just human reasons. But people who made money on it, meaning honorary consuls of 4 countries, Paraguay, later on Honduras, Haiti, and Peru appeared. It's Silberschein who hired them. And they did it for money. They did it purely for money. But none of them was a real citizen of the country. All of them were rich Swiss lawyers. The countries themselves were not responsible for what they did. The countries, and particularly Paraguay, in 1943, in a very unknown humanitarian gestures, after Polish intervention, recognized all the passports for all the length of the war, contributing to saving many lives, including, I believe, to Uri Strauss family one. I think I will pass the floor to Monika and come back later on to tell you what we have discovered about the Ładoś-Liste.
Hello. No, the pilot. Okay. So what really happened in Bern in those years during the war? It turns out that these 6 people created a system of forging false documents, especially Paraguayan. How were the passport created? You can see here a scheme of how the Paraguayan passport was created. First, Polish diplomats buy blank passports from the honorary consul of Paraguay. The Paraguayan embassy was 300 meters from Polish legation. They would buy, for example, 100 examples passports at the time. The Jewish organization provide all the data, all the personal data, and also photographs of Jewish people who needed help. Passports returned to the Polish legation, and then Konstanty Rokicki handwritten them all the passports. Then he had to return to the Paraguayan consulate to have a signature of the consul of Paraguay and also a stamp. After this certification, the passports were distributed to Jewish organization which distributed them to occupied Europe. You have to understand that those were only special war passports. It was understood that people who received them, they never meant to go to Paraguay. It was only the tool for surviving the Holocaust. By receiving such passport of a country which was not occupied by Germany, People were considered as foreigners by the Germans and were sent to internment camps and had the possibility to be exchanged for Germans who were captured by Allied forces. My team goal was to uncover the details of the passport operation. Our journey through archives started where the group operated, in Switzerland, in Bern. The Federal Swiss Archives in Bern proved to be one of the most significant sources of information. It was there that we found the Swiss police investigation from 1943 against honorary consul of Paraguay. He was accused of making profits of selling such blank documents. During his investigation, we found some of people from the group, from the Ładoś group, testified. We found 3 testimonies. Here you can see Abraham Silberschein testimony. Abraham Silberschein provided personal data to Polish legation and also photographs of people who needed help. And he was also responsible for securing financial support for the whole operation. Here is Chaim I's testimony. He organized the passport smuggling network, obtained also personal data and photographs, and also financial resources for the group. From their accounts, for the first time, we learned that the Polish legation was involved in the passport operation. Then we started to look for individual archives of members of the group. We turned to Yad Vashem in Israel. We found there an archive of Dr. Abraham Silberschein. Probably the most important and exciting discovery in these archives were lists of people for whom Abraham Silberschein issued passports. At first, we couldn't decipher his notes. There are many of them. I know it can't be seen, but initially, we found his own instruction. It was only then that we understand his system. Then we understand that what kind of document he sent to whom. Was it a Honduran or Paraguayan passport? Who was supposed to deliver the passport? Was it an organization, a company, or a person? And to what destination? We also found the correspondence between the Polish legation, especially Konstanty Rakicki, the one who handwritten all the passports, and Abraham Silberschein. In this correspondence, Silberschein asked Rakicki to change some names in the documents. So it must have been him who issued all the passports at the first place, as the handwriting had to be consistent. In January 1943, Abraham Silberschein wrote that he had already issued passport to 10,000 people. Here is another collection, but I will leave it to Bartek.
Dzień dobry Państwu. Ja dla różnicy zacznę mówić po polsku. Może będziemy mieli zróżnicowany językowo wykład. Tutaj mamy przykład kolekcji Eisa pozyskanej przez Muzeum Auschwitz-Birkenau w 2018 roku.
Also hier haben wir ein Beispiel, die Kollektion von Eis, die 2018 von dem Muzeum Auschwitz-Birkenau
Kolekcja ta została pozyskana przy współpracy Ministerstwa Kultury oraz Ambasady RP w Bernie.
Diese Kollektion wurde entdeckt oder zugänglich gemacht dank der Zusammenarbeit zwischen dem
Ambasady w Bernie.
Zwischen der Botschaft in Bern und dem Museum in Auschwitz-Birkenau.
W dokumentach tych znaleźliśmy bardzo dużo ciekawych przykładów korespondencji, którą prowadził Chaim Ice. Mamy tam pocztówki z okupowanej Europy wysyłane do Chaima Ice'a w celu, w których piszą osoby błagają wręcz o pomoc materialną, ponieważ Heim-Eis oprócz organizacji Paszport.
Vielleicht ein Stopp. Also hier haben wir eine interessante Korrespondenz, die Postkarten von Eis. Und hier sehen wir auch ein Beispiel, dass die auch ein Hilferuf waren.
Oprócz akcji paszportowej również uczestniczył, również pomagał w formie materialnej Żydom w okupowanej Europie. Następnie mamy bardzo ważny dokument przedstawiający przepływ gotówki pomiędzy organizacjami żydowskimi z USA a Heimem Eisem.
Können Sie bitte noch mal wiederholen? Also ich, ja. Ostatnie zdanie, przepraszam.
Mamy również przykład dokumentacji finansowej, która przedstawia dokładnie przepływ pieniędzy pomiędzy USA a Heimem Eisem przy współpracy poselstwa RP w Bernie.
Also hier haben wir auch ein Beispiel des Geldtransfers oder der Überweisung des Geldes zwischen der USA und Heim.
Pomoc finansowa była możliwa tylko i wyłącznie dzięki udostępnieniu zasobów poselstwa organizacjom żydowskim, w tym szyfrów, w celu ominięcia cenzury i możliwości informowania organizacji żydowskich o potrzebie pomocy.
Also diese Hilfe war unter anderem dadurch möglich, dass die Verschlüsselung
dadurch möglich, dass die Botschaft verschiedene Ressourcen beigetragen haben, unter anderem Schlüssel, also um sich in Sicherheit, also diese Überweisungen zu machen.
Następnie mamy dokumentację z archiwum akt nowych w Warszawie, przedstawiającą właśnie te szyfrogramy, o których mówiłem przed sekundką.
Und hier haben wir auch eine Dokumentation von den Texten, von den verschlüsselten Schriften. Mateusz, możesz
w archiwum akt nowych w Warszawie mamy dokumenty zawierające szyfrogramy poselstwa wysyłane z poselstwa RP w Bernie do USA, przedstawiające cały przebieg akcji paszportowej.
Also wir haben in einem Archiv in Warschau also eine Dokumentation der ganzen Korrespondenz zwischen der Botschaft in Bern und Amerika, also in der also diese ganze Prozeduren und ganze Aktion dargestellt wurde.
Depesze również wysyłane były oczywiście do rządu RP na uchodźstwie w celu aktywizacji środowisk żydowskich oraz przesyłania pieniędzy i bardzo wielu innych czynników, w których akcja ta miała miejsce. Informowano przede wszystkim przesyłano przede wszystkim pieniądze i na jakie cele.
Also diese Korrespondenz war auch zwischen Exilregierung und zwischen Botschaft und jüdischer Diaspora. Und in dieser Korrespondenz ging es darum, dass es Ressourcen zu mobilisieren, also Geld und auch die Namen und auch andere Ressourcen.
Oczywiście cały czas mówimy tylko tutaj o 4 krajach. Haiti, Honduras, Paragwaj i Peru.
Also wir sagen jetzt über 4 Länder, also Haiti, Honduras, Paraguay und Peru.
Te dokumenty, w tych dokumentach poselstwo w wyrabianiu brało udział.
Also in diesen Dokumenten, also bei der Herstellung von diesen Dokumenten hat die Botschaft nicht teilgenommen.
Znaleźliśmy do tej pory 216 dokumentów paragwajskich, to są ich przykłady.
Wir haben 216 Dokumente von Paraguay, das sind Beispiele gefunden.
To są natomiast paszporty honduraskie, których znaleźliśmy 75.
Und 75 Pässe von Honduras haben wir gefunden.
Tu mamy przykład paszportów haitańskich.
Das sind Beispiele von Haiti-Pässe.
Oraz Peru.
Und Peru.
Po zebraniu dokumentacji z różnych archiwów stworzyliśmy listę osób, którym wystawiano dokumenty.
Dank der Dokumentation von ganz verschiedenen Archiven haben wir eine Liste hergestellt, also mit verschiedenen Namen.
Niestety dane tych osób były niepełne. Często brakowało różnych potrzebnych danych w celu identyfikacji takich osób.
Also leider waren nicht alle Daten vollständig und es gab auch Mangel an verschiedene Informationen.
Początkowo korzystaliśmy z własnych możliwości przeszukiwania danych w internecie, w różnych portalach genealogicznych.
Am Anfang haben wir begonnen, also da im Internet zu suchen und auch einen Genealogieportal, Website.
Ale stwierdziliśmy, że bez pomocy instytucji takich jak Żydowski Instytut Historyczny, Instytut Pamięci Narodowej oraz Muzeum Auschwitz-Birkenau nasze prace ulegają, dzięki tej pracy tych instytucji przyspieszyliśmy nasze prace.
Dann haben wir große Hilfe von solchen Institutionen wie zum Beispiel Jewish Historical Institute aus Warschau, was für ein
Instytut
IPN, also Institut für National Remembrance
i Muzeum Auschwitz-Birkenau.
Und Museum Auschwitz-Birkenau bekommen.
Dzięki temu mogliśmy dotrzeć do często pamiętników i wspomnień osób z czasów okupacji, w których również znaliśmy informacje na temat paszportów i dokumentów wystawianych przez Bern.
Dank dieser Hilfe war es für uns möglich, also auch die Berichte, Relationen, Testimonies von verschiedenen Personen zu benutzen und auch diese Daten etwas mehr vollständig zu machen.
Teraz prosiłbym Kubę o kontynuowanie.
Coming back to the results of the research, it's the result of nearly 2 years of our work. Well, I must be very sincere. I don't like to take credits for what other people have invented. The idea of creating this list came from Dariusz Stola, at that time the director of Polin Museum in Warsaw. He just told me that, you know, if you want to really accurately investigate into what your predecessor has done, what you must do is to find out what happened with the people who had the passports. So exactly we started looking for various lists of owners of Latin American passports, mostly created by Nazi administration at the end of the war, when they still wanted to exchange these people for Germans being interned in Latin America, which proved to be completely unsuccessful, by the way, because in 1944 there were not many Germans who wanted to come back to Germany. And but still in 1944, the cables sent from Bern, which Bartek spoke about, they practically document the whole Holocaust. Since 1941 to 1945, Jewish organizations were permitted to use the Polish cables and to communicate among each other, between each other. So Vat Hatzalah joint, American joint, and Agudat Israel just would use the legations and embassies of Poland to send the messages. Now we have access to these cables, and we can trace a lot of events, very well-known events related to Holocaust. The first reports about the existence of Treblinka and Auschwitz death camps, but also, for example, the negotiations which took place in 1944 between Heinrich Himmler and the Jewish Vat Hatzalah. Heinrich Himmler, who was ready at one moment to accept a gigantic bribe for letting many thousands people go. We have this cable, and it was a shock for me to know it existed, but I know that many historians have already written about it. I'm not a discoverer of that failed negotiations. which ended with letting only several thousand people to be exchanged or to leave Germany for Switzerland. It was mostly transport in, I think, February 1945. When we established the whole list, we found out that the passports were numbered. The numbers are growing. They're growing numbers, meaning 174, 75, 77, and so on and so on. So taking the biggest numbers of each series, of each type of document, we've just counted the number of documents. Now taking those documents we have as a random sample, we attributed certain arithmetical value to every document. You understand that at that time passports were not issued for one person, but for the entire families. There can be up to 11 people on one such a passport. And we have established that the average is 2.34, for example, person for a Paraguayan passport. So if you make a very simple arithmetic calculation, we have reached this number. But basically the number is higher. It should be between 9 and 12,000, but we believe that basically in every scientific work it is better to limit the scope of finding than to inflate it. That's why this is our estimation. And this estimation coincides with Abraham Silberschein testified to the Swiss police in 1943 when he was arrested. He said, shortly after he wrote a report to the World Jewish Congress, it was the beginning in 1944, saying we have rescued 10,000 people. Our researchers largely confirmed that he was not very far from his estimations were not very far from truth. Now the question of and this is our problem. Why this also explains why I'm here, because the most shocking part is that among the documented rescues, there are more Germans, Dutch, and Austrians than Poles. Well, I could say that in Poland, this operation largely failed, while in Germany and Holland, it largely succeeded. Look at the numbers. Most of passports were issued for Polish Jews. Vast majority, 70%. But among survivors, I mean, only 15% of them are documented survivors. Many more died, and the fate of half of them is still unknown. It's unknown, really. I mean, probably many of you may have questioned how is it possible that a person's fate is unknown after so many years? Well, please let me explain that people who were deported from the ghettos to the death camps were not counted, were just counted, but never there was no administrative process. So they just disappeared literally. There was a person in 1939 living in Będzin or in Warsaw, and this person did not exist until 1945. It may have three endings. One, a tragic one, a typical. The person was gassed in Auschwitz or in Treblinka. Another is that the person obtained a fake Polish identity, survived, and never came back to the Jewish one. A third option is that the person survived after the war, made Aliyah to Israel, never spoke about what he or she saw and survived, changed the name, Hebraized the name. We have found such people on the list. But if you compare it with Germany, look, and in the Netherlands, most of the people who were in possession of Ładoś passports survived the Holocaust. In Germany, it's 52%. In Holland, it's 61%. Let me also explain to you that the Germans who were in possession of such passports, we always attribute the German nationality to everybody who had it before Hitler came to power. We don't recognize the Entbürgerung policy and so on. This would be inhuman to count like that. So everybody who had a German passport before and lost it because of the Nazis is still German for us in this study. Many of these people in 1940 were caught in Holland, where they had been refugees after 1933. Basically, among German people who had these passports, were for example, was Georg Hermann Borchardt, one of the quite well-known writer from the interbellum period. He died despite having the passports, but his daughter and the grandson survived. The grandson is still with us, he's still alive. He's a retired kibbutznik in Israel. On the list, there was also the best friend of Anne Frank, Hanneli Goslar. She's still alive as well, and she lives in Israel. We have also found 3 children and wife of Alfred Wiener, the founder of the Wiener Holocaust Library, and many, many others. Basically, German Jews who are on the list were quite influential and came from many parts of Germany. It's Frankfurt, it's Hamburg, some of them came from South Germany. There's no dominant city. So it was basically, practically most of them were refugees in Holland at that time. And the passports arrived to the concentration camps in Holland like Westerbork or directly to Bergen-Belsen, where the most of survivors actually survived or stayed until the end of the war. Other countries, there are some smaller numbers of Czechs and Slovaks, Austrians, Belgians, French. Most of them are members of Jewish resistance. For example, this is the case of Slovakia. The whole Jewish resistance movement in Slovakia and in France and in Italy, the whole leadership had Ładoś passports. We are unable to tell you why and how they reached them, and probably the contact point was Silberschein, but there are no documents to tell you more. Well, our estimates, we believe that as we count the numbers of survivors, we know about 3,253 people, out of which 834 are documented survivors. Some 900, more than 900, are documented victims of Holocaust, and the fate of the rest, meaning 45%, is unknown. So we believe that basically between 27 and 47 people should be listed as survivors. It depends how we count. But believe that the higher number is too inflated. This is what we estimate, 30-35% the rate of survival. Of course, it increased the possibility of survive the Holocaust, but being in possession of a Ładoś passport, of course, did not guarantee the survival, because nothing guaranteed the survival during the Holocaust. And that must be clearly said. I have never said, and will never say, Alexander Ładoś or his people rescued 2,000 to 3,000 people. I would say that 2,000 or 3,000 people who were in possession of such passports survived under very different circumstances the Holocaust. Of course, it does not diminish the heroic part of this story, but for the sake of scientific accuracy, I would be very, very, very clear about that. This is one of the passports, but still to many Jewish families, having such a passport is really like a holy object. This is such a case in an Israeli home, a passport which saved the life of a Dutch family. Thank you very much. Just let me remind, we have published this book thanks to the cooperation between many institutions who very often differ in their views. It is Institute of National Memory, it's Pilecki-Instituts, of course. It's also Jewish Historical Institute in Warsaw, and it's Auschwitz-Birkenau Memorial Museum. We also received a lot of help from Bergen-Belsen Memorial Museum, and the book was finally published under the patronage of the World Jewish Congress and presented in the Wiener Holocaust Library in London. I think it's one just personal remark is that the rescue operation I have spoken about was not a Polish rescue operation. It was a Polish and a Jewish rescue operation. And the way we discovered this thing was also a large Polish and Jewish operation, which with many, maybe more than 100 people involved. And here I stop. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much. So And now, Kuba mentioned, Jakub Kumoch mentioned that the story of German Jews, and now we switch to German. Wir werden jetzt das Gespräch führen mit Vertreter von einer jüdischen Familie aus Deutschland, der während des Krieges in Amsterdam lebte. Und ja, in diesem Buch finden wir unter der Nummer 2491 Name Josef Strauss. Unter Nummer 2493 Uri Strauss. Und unter Nummer 2492 Lola Strauss. Kennen Sie diese Personen, Uri?
Moment. Hören Sie mich? Ja, okay. Das waren meine Eltern, Josef und Lola Strauss. Mein Vater kam aus Hamburg, meine Mutter aus Gießen. Gießen ist bei Frankfurt. Und ich wurde in Holland geboren. Und natürlich meine Eltern wurden sozusagen staatenlos gemacht, nachdem die Nazis die deutsche Pässe nicht mehr anerkannt haben. Und mein Vater, der natürlich aus Hamburg kam, hat genau gewusst, dass wenn man keinen Pass hat und kein Dokument hat, ist man zum Abschuss bereit sozusagen. Da ist man niemand. Und dank ein Onkel von uns, ein Onkel von meiner Mutter, der in Zürich gewohnt hat, haben wir einen paraguayischen Pass bekommen. Und das war natürlich eine große Sache damals. Da hat man jetzt ein Dokument gehabt. Und das war etwas, was man benutzen konnte, wenn es sein musste, um der Gestapo zu entgehen.
Aha. Wann ist Ihre Familie nach Amsterdam gegangen?
Meine Mutter kam schon in 1933 nach Amsterdam, als junges Mädchen sozusagen. Sie kam aus München, weil sie hatte eine Schwester in Amsterdam, die eine Pension hatte und verheiratet war. Und mein Vater kam in 1938 nach Amsterdam.
Und Sie haben dort kennengelernt?
Sie haben sich dort kennengelernt und auch dort geheiratet.
Aha. Und was waren die Lebensbedingungen in Amsterdam zu dieser Zeit? Also wie lebte Ihre Familie? Also was war der Beruf von...
Mein Vater war Metallhändler und das war natürlich ein sehr guter Beruf damals. Weil dann kam man auf die Metallliste. Die Metallliste war ein Dokument, was für eine gewisse Zeit funktioniert hat. Die Leute, die drauf waren sozusagen für die Kriegswirtschaft sehr wichtig und wurden dispensiert. Er kam auf verschiedenen Listen. Immer wieder, man hat ja natürlich nie gewusst, wann eine Liste aufgehört hat zu funktionieren. Das konnte von einem Tag auf den nächsten passieren. Und da waren so und so viele Listen, auf die er immer wieder, bevor er den Pass bekommen hat, wieder drauf war.
Aha. Und Sie sind im Jahr 1940 geboren. Und haben Sie irgendwelche Erinnerungen an diese frühe Kindheit oder nicht? Also oder vielleicht einige Erzählungen in der Familie. Also was haben Sie von dieser Zeit in Erinnerung?
Erstens musste immer ruhig sein. Wenn die Türglocke geläutet hat, muss man ganz still sein. Als Kind durfte man auch nicht weinen praktisch. Man musste einfach, man hat nicht existiert. Eine Erinnerung, die mir natürlich geblieben ist, wir hatten einen guten Freund, meine Mutter hatte einen guten Freund und der hat in die jüdische, wie gesagt, Jozerat, jüdischer Rat gearbeitet, Judenrat. Und der war war tagtäglich tätig dort, hat gute Verbindung natürlich gehabt zu den Deutschen und hat gewusst, was der nächste Zug ist, was passiert. Eines Morgens um 6 Uhr kam er zu uns und hat gesagt, raus, heute kommt die Südrazzia, beziehungsweise die Razzia vom Süden, und das ganze Bezirk wird abgesperrt und die Gestapo geht von Haus zu Haus die Leute abholen. Ihr müsst sofort raus. Gibt einen Crash um die Ecke und der Crash ist sozusagen das ein Kindergarten und das ist off-limits. Das bedeutet, dass all die Angestellten oder Familienangehörigen, die Leute, die in die Jozerat gearbeitet haben, die dürfen dort rein und es passiert nichts. Das sind off-limits. Okay, um 6 Uhr sind wir gegangen. Ich war 2 oder 3 Jahre, ich war 3 Jahre damals. Meine Eltern haben gesagt, ein kleines Kind, 6 Uhr morgens, das ist keine Zeit, wo das Kind aufstehen soll. Und am ersten Stock von dem Haus waren Kinderkrippen. Dann haben meine Eltern gesagt, okay, gut, wir legen Uri dort zum Schlafen und sie haben sich neben dem Bett, sozusagen neben der Kinderkrippe, auch platziert. Eine halbe Stunde später kam die Gestapo und hat alle Leute unten weggenommen. Aber kam nicht auf die Idee, dass sie raufkommen sollen. Wir waren die Einzigen, die überlebt haben. Wir waren dort bis 8 Uhr abends und wo meine Eltern zurückkamen, war kein Mensch mehr auf der Straße.
Was passierte später?
Wir hatten, wie gesagt, mein Vater hat damals den Judenstern abgenommen, er hatte ja einen Pass und hat normal sozusagen seine Tätigkeit weitergeführt, hat aber auch gleichzeitig durch die Bekanntschaft von dem einer Herr, der Walter Süßkind, hat er gesagt, hör zu, wenn unsere Dokumente verschwunden sind, wenn wir nicht mehr existieren dokumentarisch, dann sind wir sicher. Und das war der Fall. Der Walter Süßkind ist zum Zentralamt gegangen und nachdem er gute Beziehungen hatte, hat er unser File rausgenommen. Mein Vater hat einen File bekommen und im Ofen verbrannt. Das bedeutet, wir waren nicht mehr offiziell registriert. Wir hatten den paraguayischen Pass, noch ein paar andere gefälschte Dokumente, die mein Vater gemacht hat. Und das war gut genug. Und das hat uns durchgebracht.
Also wussten Ihre Eltern, also woher diese Pässe gekommen sind?
Sie wussten, dass es aus der Schweiz kam.
Ja, also nur aus der Schweiz. Ja?
Aus der Schweiz. Aber wer die Pässe gemacht hat, hat natürlich kein Mensch gewusst damals, im Prinzip.
Aha. Und was passierte später? Also das heißt, also bis Ende des Krieges, wo waren Sie? Also
in Amsterdam.
In Amsterdam. Und nach dem Krieg?
Nach dem Krieg wurde der paraguayische Pass offiziell verlängert vom paraguayischen Botschafter in Amsterdam für 2 Jahre. Und das waren unsere Reisedokumente.
Also Sie sind legal, also der Bürger von Paraguay, oder?
Das sagt er immer.
Also rechtlich anerkannt.
Rechtlich anerkannt, damals, okay.
Ja, okay.
Und damit sind wir rumgereist durch Europa. Der Pass ist da irgendwo, ich kann Ihnen den Pass zeigen. Mit die Stempel, Transitvisa durch Europa, durch Frankreich, durch Deutschland sozusagen, durch Belgien, durch Luxemburg. Und das war ein offizielles Dokument.
Ja, also Sie waren in mehreren Ländern, also mit diesem paraguayischen Pass.
Ja.
Ja. Und wohin sind Sie am Ende gefahren? Also das heißt,
wir waren bis in 1948 waren wir in Amsterdam.
Also,
Moment.
ja, also
Zum ersten Mal darf das Publikum ein paraguayischen Pass sehen.
Ja.
Ein offizieller paraguayischen Pass. Offiziell gefälscht.
Okay, das ist eine gute Formel, ja. Das, ne?
Die ganze Familie, genau. Ich bin auch drauf, aber ganz minim, ja, und das sieht ganz platt mein Kopf noch. Ja, das war gut genug.
Also ja, das tatsächlich, also da steht auf dem Pass ist zu sehen nur ein Teil vom Kopf. Ja.
Und der Konsul Hüblich
Aha.
hat das Pass unterschrieben, ja. Das gepasst. Und, genau. Und hier sind, das ist eine Fotokopie, das Original, das verfällt, wie die Visa, die verschiedenen europäischen Visa.
Ja.
Und wie gesagt, die Unterschrift hier, noch drauf, wo ist es? Die Anerkennung vom paraguayischen, ja, Konsulat, paraguayischen Konsulat.
Ja, also,
Verlängert auf noch 2 Jahre.
ja, also das dauerte bis Jahr 1948. Ja, und Sie waren in Amsterdam mit allen diesen Menge von Dokumenten, paraguayischen Dokumenten. Und was passierte später? Also das heißt, was passierte im Jahr 1948?
Die sind ausgewandert nach Amerika.
Aha. Und Sie waren dort, also wie lange?
Meine Eltern haben immer dort gewohnt nachher.
Aha,
Und
ja.
ich war dort 10 Jahre. Ich bin aufgewachsen in New York und in 1961 bin ich in die Schweiz gekommen.
Als paraguayischer Bürger? Oder?
Naja, als amerikanischer Bürger.
Amerikanischer Bürger, ja, das ist eine Geschichte. Und was machten Sie beruflich? Also zuerst als Kind, also gingen Sie zur Schule in Amerika? Oder?
In Amerika, ja.
In Amerika, ja. Und dann?
Bin ich nach Zürich gekommen. Mein Onkel hat eine Bank hier, nicht hier, ich meine in Zürich. Habe ich auf der Bank gearbeitet und seit 1971 bin ich Fotograf und bin fotografisch tätig.
Und was war mit dieser Geschichte in Ihrer Familienerinnerung? Also haben Sie zum Beispiel mit Eltern oder mit anderen Bekannten oder vielleicht mit anderen Familien der deutschen Juden, die damals auch vielleicht in Amsterdam waren, darüber gesprochen?
Nach dem Krieg waren die Leute sehr beschäftigt, mit herausfindig zu machen, was mit den Familienangehörigen passiert ist, was mit Freunden passiert sind, die einfach verschwunden sind. Und das war ein Hauptthema damals. Pässe und all das war kein Thema mehr. Ja. Das Thema war, wer ist noch übrig? Wo sind die Leute? Was ist passiert? Und der Trauma vom Krieg wollte man im Prinzip hinter sich bringen. Und das ist auch ein Grund, warum jetzt erst, nach 70 Jahren, so viel rauskommt. Weil die Überlebenden haben sehr wenig gesprochen. Das war ein Trauma. Nicht nur das, die wollten ihre Kinder nicht belasten. Und sie waren auch, wie soll man sagen, sie haben sich geschämt, um ihre Kinder zu sagen, wie enthumanisiert sie wurden, was mit ihnen passiert ist. Das konnte man die Kindern nicht erzählen damals. Und erst die zweite Generation, die heute oder die dritte Generation, will wissen, was ist passiert. Meine Tochter wohnt hier in Berlin. Und die drängt mich immer wieder, Papi, du musst ein Buch schreiben, Papi, du musst ein Video machen, du hast Dokumente, du musst die Sache publik machen, was deine Eltern gemacht haben, wie sie überlebt haben. Und darum dauert es so lang, bis die ganze Sache rauskam und rausgekommen ist. Und die Retter selbst, die Leute, die involviert waren, für die war es eine alltägliche Angelegenheit. Und vor ein paar Wochen habe ich den Schweizer Botschafter in Ljubljana getroffen, hat er gesagt, das ist unser Business. Wir müssen für die Leute da sein, wir müssen Leute helfen. Und das war für Ładoś und für die ganze Gruppe genau dasselbe. Das war eine ganz normale alltägliche Tätigkeit. Was heißt alltäglich? Ein bisschen unalltäglich, aber das war ihr Job. Und das hat man nicht an die große Glocke gehängt, dass wir haben das gemacht. Man hat es gemacht, Krieg ist vorbei, fertig, Ausschluss.
Okay. Also wollten Sie etwas sagen?
Yeah, yes. When I see it, I look at this passport more as in my capacity of a civil servant, and it is quite important to note several things. As you can see, the passport has a signature of Rudolf Hügli, the honorary consul of Paraguay. Of course, the signature doesn't match the handwriting. But if you see at the left side, right, what you can see is a certain description of the person. It contains typical Polish orthographic errors. For example, the genders in French. Well, French has two genders, right? Masculine and feminine. For example, bush should be feminine. It should end with E, normal, with normale, not normal. This is an error. It is clear that it has been done by a person whose native language was not French. The same is visage. Visage is masculine. It should be oval, not ovale. Here you can see that the passport, le présent passeport délivré valable pour, and it's crossed. There is a mark here. It said, oh no, 1 year. A diplomat who fabricated this, Rokicki, just crossed it and wrote 2 years. So this shows a little bit about the real. Then quite, I wouldn't say call it anti-Semitic, but quite responding to a certain cliché from the pre-war Poland. Every Jewish possession of the passport is one thing is marked profession. So Rokicki, if he didn't know, he would put commerçant, meaning businessman. Nothing more. Well, of course, it was also clever because it's very difficult to prove to somebody that he's not a businessman.
So as we see, even analysis of mistakes can bring something to our knowledge of this action. Gehen wir weiter. Also das heißt, was war also diese Geschichte, zum Beispiel von Anna Frank, also ganz berühmt. Also sie war auch in Amsterdam, ja. Und diese Geschichten haben nicht verursacht, dass in euer Häuser, also diese Geschichte auch erzählt wurde.
Die Geschichte von Anne Frank, die kam erst viel später raus. Der Otto Frank hat die Geschichte er hat die Dokumente gefunden und dann ein Buch geschrieben. Und das kam erst in den 60er Jahren, war das Buch Anne Frank irgendetwas. Vorher überhaupt nicht.
Ja. Und was machten Ihre Eltern also nach dem Krieg?
Probieren, ihr Leben wieder in Ordnung zu bringen, beziehungsweise weiterzuleben. Man muss verstehen, in Holland, der Winter 44, 45, war eines von den strengsten Winter, die es in Europa damals gab. Gleichzeitig war ein Generalstreik von den holländischen Arbeitern gegen die deutsche Besatzung. Es gab kein Essen. Wir haben monatelang von rote Beeten gelebt. Wenn ich das Wort rote Beeten lese oder die Beete sehe, dann muss ich schon wieder, da habe ich schon genug. Ja? Ich kann die Beete nicht mehr sehen und das war seit 70 Jahren. Ja? Ja? Es war immer die Angst, dass die Wasserzufuhr abgestellt wird. Und ich weiß, meine Eltern hatten immer in die Badewanne, die war immer voll mit Wasser. Ja? Es gab, wie gesagt, es gab praktisch nichts zu essen. Jetzt etwas ganz anderes. Es gab auch nichts. Es war ein enorm kalter Winter. Man musste Holz irgendwie beschaffen oder Kohle. Zum Beispiel die ganze Judengegend in Amsterdam war nach dem Krieg demoliert. Aber es war nicht von Bomben oder von irgendetwas. Die Menschen haben die Häuser auseinandergenommen für Brennholz. Nichts anderes. Es war, wie gesagt, die Leute sind auf den Straßen erfroren und verhungert. Es war ein katastrophaler Winter. Und danach musste man sich wieder einfach aufraffen. Im Mai 1945 war plötzlich Freiheit, aber es war immer noch kein Essen da. Ja? Und das war ein tagtäglicher Kampf. Ein tagtäglicher Kampf des Überlebens, das physikalische Überleben. Früher war es ein Kampf, um die Gestapo zu entgehen. Okay. Ja. Und jetzt war es ein Kampf zum Überleben.
Aha. Und ist das gelungen?
Ich glaube es, ich bin da.
Ja, also nach den Jahren in Amerika, also Sie leben jetzt in der Schweiz.
Ja.
Also sozusagen, also Sie sind in die Schweiz gegangen, woher
der Pass kommt.
Ja,
genau.
Und also wie haben Sie also diese Geschichte, worüber Jakub, Monika und Bartek erzählt haben, also wie haben diese Geschichte erfahren?
Ich habe einen guten Freund und er ist Honorarkonsul von Polen in Bern, Markus Blechner. Und der kannte die Familie Eis sehr gut. Und eines Tages, du kennst die Geschichte, ja? Eines Tages sehr gut, kam er zu mir. Ich war jetzt bei meinem Freund Abi Herz. Ja? Und er hat mir eine hochinteressante Geschichte erzählt, dass sein Großvater hat Pässe fabriziert. Und hier, das sind paraguayische Pässe. Ich habe so einen. Ich sagte, wow. Und das ist im Prinzip mein Anfang. Ja? Und da habe ich zum ersten Mal erfahren, was der Pass bedeutet, ja, und wer dahinter steckt. Vorher hat man keine Ahnung gehabt. Mein Onkel in Zürich hat natürlich nie darüber geredet, wie er den Pass bekommen hat. Man hat es auch nicht gefragt. Man hat den Pass bekommen und danke vielmals und wunderbar, hat uns geholfen und hat in der Schublade. Mein Vater hat später nichts mehr darüber erzählt. Ich habe den Pass erst entdeckt in die Unterlagen von meinem Vater, nachdem er gestorben ist. Ja? Und so hat sich die Sache weiterentwickelt.
Also wir können sagen, dass das sehr wichtig ist, in diese Schufladen zu gucken und vielleicht also wir hoffen, dass es auch solche Pässe vielleicht in Familien gibt. Haben Sie irgendwelche Kontakte zu Familien, die auch zum Beispiel in Amsterdam zu dieser Zeit waren oder vielleicht noch in anderen Regionen der
Ja, ich habe Kontakt gehabt mit der Familie Kruskal und Flörsheim. Und der Flörsheim ist auch nach der Schweiz gekommen und seine Witwe hat auch so einen Pass. Ja. Und Kruskal auch, die Familien. Verschiedene Familien habe ich noch Kontakt und kenne ich sehr gut, ja.
Mhm. Also wie haben Sie also diese ganze Diskussion, also nach dieser Entdeckung und nach Präsentation, also von dieser Forschung, also erlebt? Also das heißt, also da gibt es irgendwelche neue Reflexionen oder vielleicht neue, also hat das irgendwelche Erinnerungen erweckt? Etwas, also da haben Sie vielleicht auch mit Freunden darüber gesprochen?
Ich glaube, die Antwort kann Herr Botschafter besser erzählen. Er hat wahrscheinlich mehr Kontakt mit verschiedenen Leuten. Ne? Du weißt auch nicht. Ja. Wie sagt das? Wenn Leute heute noch Pässe haben, dann sind es Zweitgenerationen schon. Und die haben es auch irgendwo gefunden. Es sind noch ein paar Leute, die vielleicht noch leben, aber nicht unbedingt in Europa. Vielleicht in Israel oder irgendwo anders. Wie viele sind doch da? Wie viele können noch da sein?
Ja, vielleicht Söhne oder Töchter.
Das auch, Söhne oder Töchter oder Zweitgenerationen, die Dokumente auch irgendwo in der Schublade haben und überhaupt keine Ahnung haben, was da ist.
Ja. Also der Uri, wir bedanken uns sehr für Ihre Geschichte.
Danke, bitte.
Und ich möchte jetzt alle einladen, Fragen zu stellen zu unserem Gast, Uri Strauss. Bitte sehr.
Ja, vielen Dank. Mich hat sehr alarmiert, sozusagen, Sie haben den Namen Walter Süßkind mehrmals erwähnt. Ja. Und Walter Süßkind ist ein Bürger, geboren in Lüdenscheid, ist dann beruflich nach Amsterdam gegangen als Manager, als Händler und so weiter. Und ich selbst bin Mitarbeiter in einer kleinen Gedenkstätte in Lüdenscheid, wo auch Walter Süßkind gedacht wird. Also wir haben da Ausstellung in einem ehemaligen Polizeigefängnis, wo eben den Opfern sowohl als auch Menschen, die uns bekannt sind, die in Lüdenscheid gewirkt haben und jüdischen Bürgern geholfen haben. Und Walter Süßkind wird da erwähnt. Wir wissen auch, dass er dann nicht überlebt hat. Er ist nach Auschwitz gekommen und gestorben. Wenn er jetzt aber so sehr aktiv war bei diesen Listenbeschaffungsprogrammen, das ist die Frage dann, wissen Sie, warum er nicht selber sich so ein Dokument besorgen konnte und da auch diesem Schicksal entgehen konnte?
Nein, der Walter Süßkind hat im Jüdischen Rat gearbeitet. Und er hat sich befreundet, ich muss das so machen. Okay. Komm so vielleicht ein bisschen näher. Und er hat befreundet mit dem SS-General von Amsterdam, aus der Fünten. Und die zwei waren ungefähr im gleichen Alter, haben Deutsch gesprochen, logischerweise. Und der Walter Süßkind hat gewusst, dass aus der Fünten gern mal ein bisschen Party macht, ein bisschen trinkt und
so ein kleiner Schindler.
So, genau. Und hat er immer wieder Listen von Kindern gemacht, der Walter Süßkind, und ging am Abend mit ein paar Flaschen Wein aus der Fünten, haben sie ein bisschen Party gemacht und dann, wo der andere ein bisschen tipsy war, hat er gesagt, kannst du mal bitte das unterschreiben? Und er hat zu Lebzeiten 2000 Kinder von Deportation gerettet. Und was war mit ihm los damals? Er war unter die Obhut aus der Fünten, an Kollegen. Aber der Gestapo-Chef, der hieß Fischer, der hat genau gewusst, was er gemacht hat. Und hat gesagt, Walter, wenn dein Fürsprecher mal nach Berlin abberufen wird, dann kommst du dran. Und hat ihm vorsorglicherweise schon seine Frau und Tochter nach Westerbork geschickt. Und dort waren die 1 Jahr lang oder 1,5 Jahre lang, ungehemmt. Und eines Tages, das war glaube ich in 1944, ich weiß nicht genau wann, wurde aus der Fünten nach Berlin beordert, Rapport zu geben. Und das Weekend ist der Fischer gegangen, hat Walter Süßkind verhaftet, nach Westerbork, schnurstracks, er und mit seiner Familie nach Auschwitz. Das war die Geschichte von ihm. Ja.
Bitte sehr.
Zunächst einmal vielen Dank. Ich frage mich die ganze Zeit, wie wahrscheinlich war das, dass sowas nicht aufgedeckt wird? Also ich meine, auf einmal kommen tausende Menschen aus Paraguay und sind noch nicht mal der Sprache mächtig. Und wenn einmal das aufgedeckt wird, dann ist das nur noch ein Dominostein, dass jeder, der dann aus Paraguay ist, sofort rausgenommen wird.
Die Frage ist sehr gut und die stimmt auch hundertprozentig. Irgendwann mal in 1943, glaube ich, wurde die Frage aktiv. Die Deutschen haben gemerkt, dass plötzlich sind so Tausende von paraguayischen Staatsbürgern im nazi-besetzten Gebiet. Da stimmt etwas nicht. Und haben dann nachgefragt in Paraguay, wieso habt ihr so viele Staatsbürger hier in besetzten Europa? Und die haben gesagt, hä? Was, wie? Keine Ahnung gehabt. Und dann kam ich weiß, Silberstein oder ich weiß nicht mehr, wer es war, hat einen Hilferuf an, ich glaube, nach London geschickt, nach Goodman, von Uri Strauss. Bitte, ihr müsst dafür sorgen, dass Paraguay die Pässe anerkennt. Und zu dem Zeitpunkt war in Amerika der Finanzminister Morgenthau, der war auch ein Jude. Und haben 2 Rabbiner aus New York sind nach Washington gefahren, mit Morgenthau einen Tag lang gesprochen und gesagt, bitte sorgt dafür, dass die amerikanische Regierung und der Außenminister damals war Cordell Hull, dass er Panama eine Depesche schickt und sagt, bitte anerkennt diese Pässe. Aber die ganze amerikanische Regierung damals war nicht unbedingt erpicht drauf, um jüdische Flüchtlinge irgendwie zu helfen. Haben kein Interesse gehabt, sie waren mehr dafür besorgt, um den Krieg zu gewinnen. Und Cordell Hull hat sich einfach Zeit genommen. In dieser Zeit kam die Gestapo nach Vitel. Vitel war ein Lager, wo die paraguayischen Passinhaber, die sie innerhalb Europa erwischt haben, einfach auf Eis gelegt haben, sozusagen. Und haben sie dann angefangen, die Pässe zu kontrollieren. Und haben schon Züge bereitgestellt. Und die Uri Strauss damals hat probiert, sagt, bitte, bis der Cordell Hull nach Paraguay, in Paraguay ein Message geschickt hat und gesagt, hört zu, es passiert nichts. Wir nehmen die Verantwortung für alle paraguayischen Pässe. Die kommen nie nach Paraguay. War es im Prinzip schon zu spät und die Leute aus Vitel, die paraguayische Pässe gehabt haben, wurden schon deportiert.
Well, the question of recognition of the passports by the Latin American governments is quite complex one. As Uri said, there was a Jewish intervention and there was a Polish government one, so they acted separately. The Jewish organizations tried to influence the US government, and what Alexander Ładoś did was just an obvious diplomatic intervention. He informed the Foreign Ministry of Poland that the passports need imminent recognition. The minister was at that time Tadeusz Romer, who previously had served in Tokyo and cooperated with Shune Sugihara with bringing the Jewish refugees from Lithuania. He already knew basically how to offer this kind of rescue. And he ordered all the embassies of Poland in Latin America and the US to intervene at their governments. This intervention took place, first intervention took place in December 1943, the second in May 1944. Most of governments accepted their fake citizens for the humanitarian reasons. They knew that these people will never come. The passports will be annulled after the war. Now, what happened in Vitel? Vitel was a concentration camp in occupied France, internment camp, in fact, where more or less 300 people having so-called Ładoś passports were interned. All of them were Polish Jews. At the same time, another group was interned in Tittmoning in Bavaria, and another group in Bergen-Belsen. The difference was that Bergen-Belsen was mostly for German and Dutch Jews, and Vitel was for Polish ones. And unfortunately, the treatment was not equal. Even the Nazis did not treat them equally. First, well, you can imagine that most of the crimes, the Nazi crimes on Jews, were perpetrated on what is today the territory of Poland. The ghettos were in Poland. Most of victims, half of victims of Holocaust were Polish citizens. They had already seen too much. They were treated not only as victims, but also as witnesses. Witnesses who have seen death on the streets, dead bodies, dead children, and so on and so on. Everybody who has left Warsaw Ghetto has seen death. People who survived in Holland, of course, they were also victims, and we don't need to diminish their suffering, but still the occupation of Holland had a much different character than the occupation of Poland. So there was no death on the streets. People were just deported to Poland. And so they did not witness, they witnessed deportations, but they did not witness murder, the direct murder. That's why I believe the Nazis ignored the recognition by Paraguay of the passports in case of Vittel, and they deported the people to Auschwitz. Only a handful of them survived, dozen maybe. But they did not deport people from Bergen-Belsen. They stayed here and they survived. The only group of Polish Jews who survived in deportation was a group who was deported, who was interned in Tittmoning in Bavaria. I cannot explain it. Maybe 50, maybe 60 people. I don't know. Maybe they were forgotten. You know, during the war there was also mess. There was also mess. Most of Polish survivors did not survive like Uri did, or like the Dutch or German Jews did in Bergen-Belsen or in other internment camps, but the passports only helped them to understand what was going on. They survived the first wave of deportation, the second wave of deportation, and they understood that sooner or later they will be deported too. So they went into hiding. These passports probably, they gave them time to understand what was going on. Another group of people is a group for whom passports had a psychological value. They were in hiding in 1943 among the Polish population, but they wanted another parachute. So they got this document. Of course, it had no physical impact, but it had psychological impact. Having a second parachute makes you more secure and makes your will of surviving stronger. We also know a case, very individual one, of a person who smuggled a Ładoś passport to Auschwitz-Birkenau. And we cannot understand how he did it, because he had all the passports with himself during his entire stay in Auschwitz, during the death march, and he still kept the passport very close to his body. He survived and he died in Israel in 1992. Well, I believe that he treated this passport as a last chance of survival if he's selected for execution or something. And we know from another sources, Heidi Fischmann's grandfather survived in Theresienstadt, showing the passport to an SS officer shortly before deportation. So psychological value is also not to be underestimated of these documents.
Ja, vielen Dank. Also ich denke, das ist dann nur eine Schätzung, dass 2.000 bis 3.000 Menschen mithilfe dieser Pässe überlebt haben. Oder wie kommen Sie auf die Zahl 2.000 bis 3.000 von 8.000 bis 10.000 Pässen, die ausgegeben wurden? Das habe ich nicht verstanden. Denn auf einer anderen Statistik habe ich gesehen, waren es unter 1.000, die mithilfe dieser Pässe überlebt haben. Wie kommt man überhaupt auf diese Zahlen?
Well, thank you. So I'll continue in English, right? So it's better. For you, very shortly, just to be very, very precise. We can estimate the number of the passport owners because the passports have serial numbers, growing serial numbers. So we can see how many passports there were, but it doesn't mean that we have found all the passports. There is no trace after many of these people. So for example, we can see that there is passport number 174, 175, and then 181, 183, 189, and so on and so on. What's with the passports with between? We haven't found them. We are still looking for 5,000 to 7,000 people, right? We have identified 3,353 people, but that's tiny minority of the people that had passports. There are, in fact, 834 survivors among them, but again, so it's 27% of all the list, but again, we don't know what happened with 45% of people whose name we know. There are also survivors among them. So this is calculation. If there were 10,000 passport owners, how many survivors there should be? Just for our, so we estimate it's a very conservative number, as low as we can make it. But it's just to show that we don't know most of the survivors. As we know, Uri, we don't know. We know those people. No, we know many more people. We know dozens of survivors and dozens of their children, and we estimate that if there were 2,000 to 3,000, there may be 40,000 to 60,000 descendants of these survivors, so-called Ładoś children. All the time there is somebody who says, "Hey, I had this passport. My grandfather had this passport too," and it will go on. Sorry. Yes, this is estimation, but this is an estimation not based, not born in our heads, but based on statistical probability. If we again, we are still looking for 5,000 to 7,000 people, and the percentage of survival seems to be between 30 and 35%.
Coming back to that situation where in Switzerland is in the embassy of Poland in exile, the passports were filled out concrete with names by Mr. Kühl. So in normal cases, I would say, well, this person now fills out a passport from a Polish citizen, changing his nationality into a Paraguayan one, into a Haitian one, and so on and so on. In normal cases, I would say, as a civil servant, he would have a list, yes, where he wrote down the name of the Polish citizens, of the whole family, and then adds the fact that he now receives a second citizenship. And the sort of your answer indicates to me that this typical list does not exist. So who had the overview of all the names? You know, and who paid for that?
Okay, very good. Who did and who paid? Exactly, why? Well, this rescue operation is unusual. Most of writers, diplomats, what they did, they represented non-belligerent countries, and they gave illegally visas to Jews who wanted to fly from Europe. So meaning the government of X country would forbid Jews to migrate, which was common, but this consul would not obey and still issue visas to Jews. And probably this consul, what he risked was being fired from job, and at the end of the day, he was. It was the case of de Sousa Mendes. It was the case of Brazilian ambassador in Paris. They enabled Jews to travel outside Europe. But in this case, the situation was particular because the Nazis did not recognize the existence of Poland. Poland did not control the territory. So giving somebody Polish citizenship would be giving him a ticket to Auschwitz, nothing more. Because there was no Poland. From the Nazi perspective, there was no Poland anymore. So whoever was Polish was now the property of the Reich and could be killed, hanged, whatever. Now, this was an illegal operation, meaning unusual one, and I'm repeating the words of Mordecai Paldian and other Holocaust historians who already who have recognized the story. Now, why it was not properly accounted? Because it was illegal. Again, the fact that we know so much about it, it's because Abraham Silberstein committed mistakes by leaving too much information. What would happen if, for example, the Swiss police had intercepted it? There were even addresses in the occupied Poland there. So all these people, if Abwehr, who was quite interesting with the operation, intercepted the list, that would be the end of most of these people. So that's why they did not leave. What we know a lot of that thanks to the Swiss police who followed them. Because they didn't leave a single paper.
The whole story is, the fact is that the Polish embassy in Bern is the most safest place for having a complete overview of all passports.
Yes.
Send it out. And I am questioning myself, why is it so impossible to find out the real number and all the names when it would be for a normal civil servant a fact that when he gives out an additional nationality, that he leaves no trace about that. You know, I think that, you know, the point where all these informations gathered together was not the Bern embassy, but was the Relico office in Bern.
Well, but it contradicts the whole interrogation minutes. Relico office. Just a moment. First of all, all passports have the handwriting of a Polish consul, Konstanty Rokicki, and Julius Kuhl, which you mentioned, actually pointed that where he did it was Tunstrasse 2022, the seat of the consulate of Poland at that time. Relico was very important, Relico and that Gudat Israel, in preparing the documents for passports to be issued, because. If you prepare any document we prepare documents for 10,000 people where you don't know 10,000 people, neither I do. You need to make this operation much broader. And Abraham Silberschein, you were right to mention Relico and Abraham Silberschein. Abraham Silberschein had his agents in many places, including Zagłębie, Będzin, or Bensburg. These people prepared lists of people for him, but he still needed an operation, a clerical operation, which was conducted by the Polish embassy with the Polish consulate. Now, you are right to ask who financed the operation. Because every passport, let me remind, costed more or less 500 francs, multiplied by 10, so to receive today's prices, 5,000 euros. So a good salary for a passport. These consuls were rich people, but they were not working for free. Now, where did the money come from? It's complicated. First of all, a big part of financing came from Jews, from the Jewish communities. How was the money sent? We have found, and thanks to Bartosz and Monika, cables which explain it in the Polish archive. So the Ministry of Finance of the Republic of Poland in London opened a channel for Jewish families who wanted to get such passports. They would pay money in London to the Polish budget, and the money would be paid back from the reserves, gold reserves of the National Bank in Bern. That's how the passports, part of the passports were financed. Another part was financed by the World Jewish Congress, Relico and Abraham Silberschein. Another part by Chaim Eis. Because when you say Silberschein, it's 50%. More or less, let's say. Chaim Eis, completely different Jews, different people, 50%. They cooperated too, but still one was focused on Zionists and the other was focused on religious ones. Now, none of the Polish diplomats who participated in the whole operation left any traces in his memoirs. There was nothing. Alexander Ładoś promised to write, when he was working on his memoirs, to write the whole truth about Jewish issues in Bern. But he died working on it in 1963. Rokicki, no memoirs. Ryniewicz, no memoirs. Julius Kuhl left some in the 80s, but he was already quite aged, and I believe that he did not focus on this operation. Silberschein died in 1951, no memoirs. Eis died in 1943, no memoirs. We don't know. Now, why the whole documentation was not kept? Well, out of fear. No, the Polish embassy was not the safest place. The German Reich demanded constantly closing it. Switzerland was under pressure. We didn't know what will happen, for example, if plus fear of German intelligence. The Abwehr was quite interested in it. How could we know that, for example, somebody working in the embassy did not work for the Germans? You know, as a diplomat, you must be responsible. Silberschein was a lawyer, and Eis was a merchant, which is very important. Eis was Orthodox, and you know, Orthodox Jews had years, hundreds of years of tradition of living clandestinely. And at the same time, a lawyer from Lvov, from Lemberg, an Austro-Hungarian lawyer, for him it was clear that when you do something, you document it, you leave papers. He was a very bad conspirer, but thanks to the fact that he was a very bad conspirer, we know much more. Thanks to him and thanks to the Swiss police, who left everything. I think I responded. Both, everybody who had no diplomatic status was arrested or interrogated at least once. Silberschein was arrested in September 1943, and immediately after his arrest, Stefan Ryniewicz, the deputy of Alexander Ładoś, went to meet Heinrich Rothmund. For those who don't know the name of Heinrich Rothmund was the head of Fremdenpolizei in Switzerland and is being credited with the biggest responsibility for delivering Jews, for not letting Jewish refugees reaching the Switzerland. For Swiss Jews, he has a, well, his name has the same more or less as reputation as Gestapo or something like that. I'm not judging it. I try not to speak about things I haven't researched myself. So
we collect some questions because we have to give some space also for our interpreter. And so we collect some questions and we. Okay. So now the question here.
My name is Matthias Dornfeld. I came a bit late, probably you already mentioned this, but why was the Consulate General of El Salvador in Geneva not involved in this operation? Taking under consideration that the Consul General and his aide supported Jews in Budapest and in Hungary and saved Jews there. Why was this country not involved in this operation in Switzerland?
Anybody else? Noch eine Frage?
But I can just answer this question. He is mentioned in the book. We definitely state that this is not the part of the same operation. We don't want to take credit for our diplomats for something they haven't done. Mandel Mantello, the Jewish worker of the Salvadorian consulate, and his boss, Castellanos, the consul general, did the same, but later. Just repeated the same operation in 1944. So we stated in the book that we don't see any link between the Ładoś papers and Mantello papers, who are equally important, but just not to mix two things. Of course, he helped a lot of people. He's writers among the nations and so on. So there is no doubt about it.
For the answer, hello. There's a book about Mantello from David Kranzler in America. You have the book.
My question was why Elster was not involved in this particular operation.
He had his own operation. He was the honorary consul of El Salvador.
Yes, the first Salvadorian documents appear in late October or early November 1943, and the Ładoś operation ends in practically December 1943 because all the consuls were fired. Ładoś didn't know what to do. He said he cabled the government saying there are no consuls left. We cannot produce passports. But at the same time, Chaim Eis died and was replaced by Sternbuch. And Sternbuch probably was the one who found and localized Mantello and started working together. But Poles were not. I don't see any proofs of Poles being involved in it. And I want to be clear about it and honest.
Mantello actually worked because of Eichmann in Budapest. He did the whole Hungarian operation, basically.
Okay, so I have to say, because we have and I would collect 2 questions more, and after that there's great opportunity to talk with others, with Uri Strauss, later on, and there's opportunity upstairs. So, 2 questions more.
Okay, I actually have 2 questions to both of them. I will keep it very short. Hallo, guten Tag, Herr Strauss, und danke, dass Sie uns an Ihrem Leben haben teilhaben lassen. Ich habe eine sehr persönliche Frage. Waren Sie jemals in Paraguay? Also hat Sie das mal interessiert, dorthin zu reisen?
Ich war niemals in Paraguay. Wäre jetzt eingeladen,
ja.
Aber in die ganze Angelegenheit mit Reisen heutzutage habe ich die Reise abgesagt.
Ja.
Aber ich wäre im Prinzip nächste Woche in Paraguay.
Ich war in Paraguay.
Du warst
also
in
Paraguay?
Ja,
ich arbeitete in Paraguay, aber das hatte nichts mit den Pässen zu tun.
Okay, and the second question is for the diplomat. I would like to ask, are there any cases where people or Jews actually went to Paraguay? I know it was not meant to be that way, but did they actually do it because they were stateless after the Holocaust and maybe some just went to Paraguay? Do you have any documents about that?
No, we don't know any case of anybody who really traveled to Paraguay.
One, I think.
You have one.
No, not me. One.
Heinz Lichtenstern.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, but he lived in Brazil, but it had nothing to do with the passports. He went to Brazil because he was afraid of the Third World War. During the Korea War, he just escaped from Europe. That was his idea, but it had nothing to do with the passports. No, nobody, as far as we know, traveled to Paraguay. This was not meant to be used to travel to Paraguay. We have certain feelings that some people who escaped from occupied Poland via Slovakia got to Turkey or to Palestine using the Paraguayan passports or crossing the borders between, let's say, Slovakia and Hungary and so on. But it was not for migrating. It was for saving lives only.
One question, short question more.
Ganz kurze Frage. Bartosz, ist er gerechter unter den Völkern in Yad Vashem? Ist righteous among the people, like Schindler and others?
Well, maybe not like Schindler because they had nothing, not much to do. Konstanty Rokicki was recognized by Yad Vashem in April last year, 2019. Now Alexander Ładoś in the same recognition paper was treated as he was Konstanty Rokicki helper or Konstanty Rokicki assistant. There was a big protest by the survivors, and and some Holocaust historians also contributed. As far as I know, now Yad Vashem is trying to repair it, and they are deliberating on Alexander Ładoś and Stefan Ryniewicz. All 3 other members of the groups were Jewish, so they are not eligible, but all of them were posthumously decorated by Poland last year. All of them, Jewish and Poles alike, by the Medal of Virtus and Fraternitas. The families came, including the family of Julius Kuhl, whose son-in-law is Israel Zinger, the one who later on played an important role in the question of return of Jewish property by Switzerland. And yeah, we are moving forward. Well, our purpose is not, of course, to grant Israeli decorations, but rather to honor them in Poland, because they're all Polish heroes, regardless of their ethnicity or religion.
The very last question.
Okay, I have a question about the passports from Honduras, Haiti, and Peru, because I think in the case of Paraguay, I think the case is quite clear. Rokicki filled them and then gave it back to Hügli, and they signed them. But where do you see the connection between the other passports and the Polish embassy? Because this is not really clear from...
Thank you very, very much. It's in the minutes of interrogation of Abraham Silberschein in September 1943. He told the police of Geneva actually how the whole operation, how his involvement began. He said that he had a meeting with Ryniewicz and Rokicki. At that time, only Paraguayan passports were produced. And these 2 gentlemen, he said, convinced me that there is a black market of passports in Switzerland and the prices are too high. So they tasked him with getting involved, creating the highest possible number of people interested in buying such a document so that we can discuss the wholesale agreement with the Paraguayan. And then he probably received a green light to also to seek for other suppliers. And it's physically, I don't believe any Poles have. The Poles had really to how you call it to deal with these three types of passes. These were done by honorary consuls for money delivered to Silberschein. But now there are interesting things when you read Polish cables. For example, the ambassador of Haiti at that time was Mr. Fouchard, who was based in Bern. When Fouchard died, Ładoś sent a cable to the foreign minister of Poland. The cable is very, very short. The local ambassador of Haiti died, our true friend. I would be grateful if you send condolences to his widow. Well, I don't know. Even if American ambassador died, I would not bother my minister to send condolences to his widow because he's our true friends. When you can't understand this we never had an embassy in Haiti. We never had a real diplomatic relations with Haiti. So you can read as a diplomat. I mean, when you read the diplomatic language, what happened? Ładoś probably maintained relations with the ambassador of Haiti and convinced him to turn a blind eye on what his consuls were doing. Otherwise, we cannot explain that. Then, when Silberschein, many times when he wrote about the operation, he said this operation has full endorsement by the Polish legation, which was important because, well, Poles and Jews needed each other in this operation, needed each other like, you know, it's not Polish neither Jewish, it's Polish and Jewish. You cannot say Silberschein is more important than Kühl and Kühl is more important than... First of all, yes, because Ładoś was the ambassador. And let me quote Sternbuch family. They said very clearly, without Ładoś, no one would have been rescued. Without Ładoś, without his consent to do it. Richard Sternbuch and Isaac Sternbuch wrote a letter after the war saying, without Ambassador Ładoś, no, not a single soul would have been rescued. It's very simple why it is so. Because Switzerland during the war, ladies and gentlemen, was a police state, was much more effective police state than any of the belligerent states. The police knew everything. They knew exactly what we have written. Now, the Jewish organizations without Ładoś would have been arrested within 24 hours. Look at the minutes of Ładoś and Pilecki-Instituts. This is quite important to explain it because I understand this discrepancy. Ładoś could have said, listen, I have never heard about any passports. I don't know what you are talking about. Why he didn't do that? Because then the Swiss would understand it quite clearly. Okay, so we can do whatever we want. No, he said, it's us, and we are going to blackmail you. We are going to make a scandal out of it. You are going to pay for it if you break the ring. So this is the case. Silberschein joined the operation in 1943. Eis joined the operation, the passport operation. He was a rescuer. He did many other things. You know, Silberschein joined it in 1942 to to rescue their own children in Belgium. But the first passports were issued in 1941 for 1940, and this was a state operation. This was not an individual rescue operation. That's why it's called Ładoś-Liste. But what we also call, we call this group of people Ładoś group. Well, we can make other names for them. Bernese group, there is a proposition. But you know, this is a question of name. Definitely, without Ładoś, it would not have happened.
Vielen Dank und vielleicht noch eine sehr kurze Frage zu Uri am Ende. Also Sie fliegen morgen nach Zürich, also mit welchem Pass? Und jetzt, also möchten wir, also ich möchte sagen, also dass wir alle sehr dankbar für die Autoren, für Monika, Bartek, Jakub und für Uri. Wir bedanken uns bei Ihnen Und wir hoffen, dass auch weitere Forschung geht, dass wir auch neue Daten finden und wir werden auch verschiedene Gemeinschaften, Communities, Milieus kontaktieren, um diese Daten möglicherweise zu sammeln. Und jetzt ist auch Gelegenheit, dort oben nochmal die Fragen an Autoren und an Uri stellen. Und jetzt bedanke ich mich auch bei Ihnen. Vielen Dank.